So, right here in the marina in Ardrossan in Scotland, and in this video we're going to be indulging in some gratuitous hole cutting and taking a look at some 35-year-old diesel filth. I'll show you how we made our own fuel tank inspection hatches, installed a diesel polishing system, and I've even included a nice little drawing for you to download. We only currently have one fuel tank for the engine, and this is the original, and it holds 240 litres or 63 US gallons. This tank's 35 years old, and even though we use anti-diesel bug treatment, we recently started to pull some sludge through into the filters after sailing in heavy weather, and there's no easy way I can clean it, so we're going to cut it open and see what's going on inside. The tank usually sits partially under the cockpit floor, and I've already disconnected everything, removed the sender for the fuel gauge, and moved the tank over so I can get access to the top. When I started to look for inspection hatches that I could buy to install, I was shocked at how expensive they were for what they are. I don't know why really, as anything to do with the boat's never cheap. These were all bought via eBay, and I put a list of materials I use here in the description below. On the left here we have a 5mm thick, 140mm diameter aluminium disc, weighing in at 12 pounds. On the right here we have a lightweight contender, same dimensions, weighing in at 6 pounds. This horseshoe shaped ring is designed as a retaining ring for fuel filler intakes on track cars, and when I saw it, it seemed just perfect for what I needed. It's got 12 tapped holes for M6 bolts, and this will form the retaining ring on the inside of the tank. I was considering making these out of stainless steel, but the aluminium will be much easier and quicker to drill, and as I'm putting a gasket between them and the tank, there won't be an issue with galvanic corrosion. I'll be using the other disc of the lid part to seal it shut, and this is going to need drilling to match the holes up. For cutting into the stainless steel tank itself, I've bought this 100mm carbide hole cutter. It was only cheap off Amazon, so I'm not holding my breath that it's going to be the greatest, but I only need it to cut 3 holes, so as long as I'm careful, it should be fine. I've cut a piece of sponge that sits inside it, and this will be saturated in lubricating fluid and help dissipate the heat away from the cutting teeth. The tank's made from stainless steel, and it has 2 baffles inside, which creates 3 internal chambers. I'm giving the top of the tank a quick clean down with some acetone before starting to measure up for the holes. I want to mark this up in the centre between the baffles, but close enough to the outer edge so once the tank's back in place I can remove the lid without having to pull the whole tank back out again. I really didn't feel comfortable installing plastic ones, and the cheapest decent ones I could find were over 250 quid each, which I thought was ridiculous. So I thought, yeah, I can make them much cheaper. But if you're watching this and you know of a good quality hatch that would be appropriate, and you don't need to sell a kidney to be able to afford it, please mention it in the comments, as I couldn't find one. So here we are, 3 holes marked up, and I'm going to drill a pilot hole in the centre of each with a 3mm carbide drill bit. When drilling or cutting into stainless steel, slow is the way to go. Ideally I would use a variable speed drill, but my old Makita 28 volt does the job as long as I'm very careful on the trigger. I'm keeping everything well lubricated and applying plenty of pressure on the drill. Well, this hole cut is actually working surprisingly well. It's managed to cut through in only a couple of minutes. So, let's take a look. Wow, well, that's what 35 years worth of diesel sediment looks like. The crap at the bottom of the tank is packed down hard enough that it'll not just dilute into the diesel as it's being sloshed around, but it's thick enough to break away in lumps and potentially block the intake pipe altogether. You can see on the sidewall where there's clean patches where it's flaked off, and this would lead to pieces floating around in the tank. This is the chamber on the end where the main fuel filler intake flows into. Well, time to try and clean all that crap out, and I'm going to make a start by flushing it through with hot water and giving it all a good scrub. We've got the bulk of it out now and it's looking a lot better. I'm just giving it a quick rinse and then we'll get those hatches done. I've paired both plates up and clamped them together, and I'm marking the solid disc with the drill bit, and I'm trying to be really careful not to damage the threads on the inner ring. No matter how accurate I try to be, I know that I'm not going to get these holes perfectly in line as I'm doing it all by hand. So I'm making a mark on the disc and on the tank, and I'll be able to rematch the hole position they're drilled in. Otherwise, I think it'll be a nightmare to try and get them all lined up again. I'm using cutting paste on the carbide drill bit here, although on this aluminium it probably doesn't need it, but the longer I can get these drill bits to last, the better. Again, the same goes for when I was cutting the holes. When drilling stainless, I always try and keep the drill speed really slow and keep it well lubricated to dissipate the heat. I put plenty of pressure on the drill as I want the tip of the bit to bite into the metal and cut pieces away. The metal chips and shavings contain quite a lot of heat, and removing this heat drills the hole a lot quicker and the bits last a whole lot longer. Earlier this year we've been out sailing in some pretty choppy weather and I noticed some crap being pulled through into the fuel filters. So I took the sender out of the tank to get access to try and clean it, but I could only get to one section due to the baffles, and only having a very small hole as access meant I couldn't do it properly. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to be able to do it like this, so I had to put it back together and keep a real close eye on the fuel filters. Being able to get the tank cleaned is a real weight off my mind, as once I knew there was sludge in there, all of that organic matter sat on the bottom could potentially block the filters and make the diesel in the tank much more susceptible to diesel bug. So once this is fully clean and we install the diesel polishing system to keep the fuel clean, hopefully that'll solve it once and for all. Before that final clean of the tank, I want to get rid of all those bits of stainless that I've just dropped in there, so I'm going to vacuum them out. I'm just using the boat's little vacuum cleaner here and I don't want to ruin it. So here's a little trick that I was shown that stops the filter from getting blocked up and burning the motor out. This is just a small piece of J-cloth that acts as a secondary filter, and I'm using an empty 5-litre detergent container with the hose taped to it, and this container will catch all those metal shards. Luckily we have a spare valve inlet next to the fuel filler intake. So I'm removing the blank that's screwed into it and I'll be putting a barbed hose connector in its place. This is going to be the return for the diesel polishing system we'll be installing. Before we carry on, I'll show you the metal bits collected in the container. This also saves me from getting moaned at for ruining another vacuum cleaner. Right, so I'm marking and cutting the 2 gaskets that I need for each of the inspection hatches. As I said earlier, this is a 2mm thick nitrile rubber sheet, and I've got a cheap hole punch to cut the holes out for the bolts to go through. I'm putting a gasket between the aluminium discs and the stainless steel tank, so there won't be a problem there, but I am using stainless bolts in the discs, so I'll be using Duralac on all the threads and anywhere where the 2 surfaces come into contact. This is an anti-corrosive jointing compound and I use it a lot on fittings where you have 2 opposing metals. And now just a quick nip up with the screwdriver and a wipe down to tidy them up a little bit, and we can get that gasket on and start to get them fitted. cut through one side of the gasket, as this will be where we slide the disc into the hole. Notice here how that gap in the disc is lined up with the mark that I made on the tank earlier. Okay, so the upper gasket's now on and the top fits. I just need to put some more Duralac on the threads and where the washers are going to touch the disc, and then we can get it all bolted down. Right, time to get the tank back into place and get it all connected back up. Here we've got the fuel filler intake back on, and I've got the pipe connected for the diesel polishing return. I've fiberglassed the corner of the tank back into place, and with a little bit of pigment added to the epoxy, you'd never know the difference. I've added a link in the description to the layout drawing that I did for the install, and this shows the relative position of everything, and it has a breakdown of all the valves and fittings that I used. For the diesel polishing, I'm fitting a cheap copy of a Parker Raycor water separator and filter. These are available for less than 25 quid, and as long as the seals are good, I don't see why you shouldn't use one of these over spending 10 times as much on another product. This setup is going to be the main manifold of the system. I've simply used two 3-way valves connected together with a female to female coupling. This will allow me to divert the fuel from the main tank to either the polisher, the engine, or both of them together. Unfortunately not in this video, but I'll be fitting a day tank into the system also, and this will allow me to be able to draw fuel from this day tank back to the engine. This is the elbow that I need for the main tank outlet, and I'm connecting the hose barb to it using the diesel approved pipe sealant. I've put a full materials list of everything I've used in the description, but if I've missed anything, put it in the comments and I'll let you know. We've got the valves, the pump and the filter connected up, and we're priming fuel through the system for the first time.
You drying through?
Yeah, the bulb's full already. Yeah, there's no leaks. No leaks.
Point through back into the tank.
Back into the tank, you can see it.
I can hear it.
You can hear it, right? No worries.
So this is the main tank outlet valve. Here we have the Vetus dual water separators for the engine pre-filters. This is the intake side from the main tank. This is the outlet to the polishing filter. This valve will direct the diesel to the engine from either the main tank or the day tank when I fit it. And this will be the inlet from that day tank. This is a Facet solid state fuel pump that's spec'd at 130 litres per hour. You need to be aware that this 130 litres is at zero lift, so if you're thinking of fitting one, take the lift head into account and make sure it'll be able to pump enough fuel as high as you need it to. When I fit the day tank, I'll make a small backing plate and fit 2 of these rubber dampeners to the back of the fuel pump, and this will take out some of the vibration and make the pump a little bit quieter. We've got the pump rigged up to an illuminated rocker switch just on the inside of the cabin. And, well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. If you've not already done so, check out our other videos for more boat repairs and all of our sailing adventures.